Hey guys, it's Kevin again. This commentary for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 2, Episode 7, The Writing on the Wall. And just from that title, I was really looking forward to this episode. First of all, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. has been amazing lately, like, extremely amazing, and probably my favorite superhero show on TV, or the show that, like, comic book show and things like that. But the reason is solely because of the fact that I thought that this episode, of course, had to do with that painting that had the writing on it, and we finally find out what that was all about. Now, this episode was very insane, very crazy. I ended up loving this episode. I think it was probably the second best episode of the season. I still think episode 5 was a little bit stronger, just the way it was done, the way it was executed. But I still love this episode, and I really like that it focused a lot more on Coulson, because Coulson has been pretty much the leader, and this one actually focused on some problems he's been having, and I definitely really enjoyed that about this episode, and we found out really what's been up with Coulson, because we know he's been hiding something. So, let's just get to it. So we see a man and a woman there who they meet at a bar, and they go to the woman's house for drinks, and she remarks that it's odd how familiar they seem to each other, and the man reveals that they have actually met before, but that the woman does remember. He opens his shirt to reveal the mysterious alien writing, and he pulls out a knife to help her remember, and you can tell that this guy is definitely really crazy, and, Coulson is then carving into his wall, and S.H.I.E.L.D. finds him there. And S.H.I.E.L.D. talks to him about how everything's connected. She's kind of upset how this is all connected, because, Grant is connected to finding the doctor, and that's connected to the doctor wants to find the obelisk, and then the obelisk is connected to the writing and the GH325 serum. So it's really just a lot for her, and I can understand why S.H.I.E.L.D. is so, stressed out, because it really is a lot to deal with at once. I mean, think about it. This is connected to that, it's just, everything is connected at once, and it's very hard to deal with it all at once. And I definitely, feel for S.H.I.E.L.D.'s pain there, and I understand why she is so upset about that. So, Coulson reveals the urge to write has been coming more and more often, so that was definitely very interesting. So, Melinda, meanwhile, is in the sky searching for Grant, and Senator, Ward has covered up Grant's escape, so the public is unaware, and Trip spots him in an airport, but Melinda tells him to stand by, and Grant pulls a bag with money, a phone, and other supplies out of a locker. Now, as we know, Grant did escape, and his brother is doing his best to cover it up, but they don't know that. So, Coulson says that the senator wants Grant alive, but to otherwise bring him in by any means necessary, and Trip spots C4 attached to Grant's body and a dead man's switch in his hand, and they decide to just track him for now. So, S.H.I.E.L.D. shows up and Coulson tells her they found Grant, and S.H.I.E.L.D. has received information and photos of the woman with the writing carved into her body. So, Coulson believes right away that she's a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. However, S.H.I.E.L.D. is saying that she's just an art teacher, but somehow he does recognize her. So I was like, okay, how does Coulson recognize her? Because if she's not a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, then how else would he recognize her? So, definitely there's something going on here. So, Coulson and S.H.I.E.L.D., they go to check out the woman's house, and they find no evidence of her being a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. They do find a room full of paintings of the alien writing, because as we know, the painting that they found was filled with that writing. So, one is labeled A Magical Place. So, Coulson begins overlaying the woman's painting on top of his own carving, and there's overlap, but she has more pieces that he was missing, and S.H.I.E.L.D. finds the woman who was a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, after all, and it turns out that she was a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, which I kind of thought she was. I mean, it made sense. She's stationed at the Triskelion, but she supposedly died of cancer 5 years earlier. So, she thought that this woman was dead, but it turns out that no, she's alive. So I thought that was definitely very interesting, and I definitely thought that was, really interesting there. So Mac and Fitz bring her body back for Jemma to examine, because they want to find out, what's going on with this woman, and Coulson is beginning to remember more about her, because as we know, he does know her, and he wants to know, we don't know how he knows her, and he's starting to remember more about her, but finds it odd that the memories just aren't there, and that was definitely really weird. And then we get, honestly, what I thought was a very awesome scene. I honestly really love that they've made Grant, one of the big villains of the show, one of the big threats, definitely, and I definitely really enjoyed that, because this scene was so much more awesome because of the way it was played out. I thought this scene was amazing. So Grant offers to help a woman and her son outside a bus station, and the woman is Elijah. Not Elijah. This is not the originals. Not Elijah. The woman is Eliza and the beau Graham, and he tells him his name is Zach, and he helps him onto the bus, but then abruptly moves to the back, and he takes a scene next to Bobby, who is undercover. And they make small talk, but Grant calls her out as working for Coulson based on the fact she has made no progress in her book. And he can tell right away that, yeah, she's working for Coulson. And I like how smart Grant is. And I mean, it makes sense why he knows this, because he worked with Coulson for a while. So it makes sense why he can tell that she's investigating for him. And he reminds her of the dead man's trigger. And then gets off the bus. He jumps on a different bus, but he doesn't notice Hunter uncovering in a seat. He doesn't notice Lance in a seat behind him. So basically Bobby and Lance, they know what's going on now, and I thought that was definitely really awesome. And honestly, as I said, Grant is definitely a very menacing villain. We'll talk about how menacing he is when we get to the last scene of the episode, which I thought was just awesome. But Jemma then talks about the woman's murder, and she says that her murder seems ritualistic, and that's likely it's not the first time he's killed. And she also recognized the carvings from what Garrett was carving. And they found DNA samples of her killer under her fingernails. Both the killer and the victim had GH325 in their blood, making them as Tati patients. So Coulson reveals the mind-reading device that Raina had previously used on him hidden in a secret room, and says they'll have to torture more information out of him. And when I say torture, I mean torture. Like, they are going to torture him. So Skye is questioning the wisdom of Coulson, dredging up the same kind of memories that drove the other Tati members' patients insane. And Skye holds Agent Stevens' photo in front of Coulson and tells him to focus on her. And this scene was just amazing. I love this. I thought this was probably definitely one of the highlights of the episode. He basically finds out what's going on here. He flashes back to the interview room at the guest house. He has that woman in front of him, and she tells him she was dying, so she volunteered for the project because, she was dying of cancer. And he counts 6 patients total, which he recommended for immediate release. And he then sees her writing the alien script on the table for the first time. And he then sees the others exhibiting side effects, all except for the killer. So Coulson recommends the project be shut down, the host be destroyed, because obviously there are tons of side effects going on, and the killer's the only one not affected, so he wants this to be shut down. And another member of the project says they can't do that the host is older than the pyramids, and she thinks the host might be forcing its genetic memory onto the patients, and that if they erase their memories, it will make room for them and they can live normal lives. So he sees the brain tweaking process he underwent happening to a patient, and he begins naming names. He just starts shouting out names. It was really weird, definitely, because what he was seeing in the flashbacks, he was just, randomly saying. So I thought that was definitely very well done, definitely very weird. So I really enjoyed that scene. That was definitely very crazy. And Grant goes into a bar. The bartender offers him a Colombian necktie or a bullet to the head. He picks up the bullet. The bartender pours him a drink on the house, welcoming Grant back. And Bakshi pulls up and enters with his men on his back. And he and Grant talk. He says that since Strucker is overseas, he wants to know who Bakshi is reporting to. And he promises he can get him close enough to Coulson to put a bullet in his head. And you can tell definitely Grant's working with Hydra. I mean, you can tell this right away that definitely he's going to work with Hydra. Because he doesn't really want to work with Coulson's team right now, because even though they have his back and he has been loyal to them, he pretty much, he got out. So obviously he wants to work with Hydra now, and I think that definitely is very cool. And I love that he and Bakshi are working together. It's really awesome, definitely. So only 2 of the Tati patients are still alive. And Coulson's trying to remember a clue about which is the killer. And he remembers the killer screaming, "I need to know." And he just starts randomly screaming it. So May contacts Skye, Melinda contacts Skye. She can definitely tell something's going on there. And Skye tells her about Coulson. And Coulson begins to react very violently. He's having a seizure and everything. The whole thing is shaking. They can't control him. And she almost pulls a gun on him. She is ready to kill him, pretty much. And she's like, you really you better hope I don't use this. So he calms down, agrees to be locked up at Melinda's request, and Skye walks him down to the holding cell, but Coulson pushes Skye into the cell, and he goes to take care of the killer personally. So a man is playing with a train with his son, and his wife comes in and says an old friend is here to see him, and then Mac and Fitz are playing video games discussing Coulson, and Fitz mentions that brains always have backup files, which Mac wonders about. This makes Mac wonder if Fitz has his own, because Fitz, of course, had that really weird thing going on with Jemma, and they're still trying to figure out how this all happened. So I definitely think that makes sense, because, of course, Mac was the one that helped him with it, and now, of course, that's gone, so he's wondering maybe Fitz had this. And I think, personally, maybe he did have backup files. And it makes sense, definitely, because this is the stuff that was, backed up. It definitely makes sense why he is thinking that. So, basically, Jemma sees Sky in the cell, lets her out, and she tells them about Coulson. Sorry, I'm getting a Skype message. Basically, we see, Jemma sees Sky in the cell and lets her out, and she tells him about what's going on with Coulson, and, Coulson is there to see the man, and Mr. Thompson, and he tries to warn the man, but the man is defensive, and Coulson pulls a gun on him and says he needs to pick his brain. He needs to find out what he means by he needs to know, and basically he's gonna do some further investigation in him. I knew this was not gonna work out, because just the way this was turning out, I was like, okay, this is not gonna work out for Coulson. I just knew it. So Melinda, Tripp, Lance, and Bobby make a plan of attacking a van. They need to get a fast, clean shot on Grant so he doesn't blow the bomb. Because if he blows the bomb, that's not going to work out. So Coulson asks if the man recognized or has reproduced the alien symbols, and the killer has already been there. And he sneaks up behind Coulson, knocks him out, and Melinda's team moves in. They find Bakshi tied up with tape over his mouth, and the tape has the two words on it. And it just says, "For Coulson," written on it. So the killer ties up Coulson and Thompson. Of course, Thompson was that guy that we saw at the end of that last episode, basically. If you remember, the last episode, episode 6, ended with us seeing that guy, and that was pretty much the guy here. And the killer says pain makes him remember things that Coulson erased. It's why he keeps cutting into his victims, and he figures out that Coulson is one of them. And the killer reveals the tattooed writing on his body, and we can see right away that, yup, this is the man. That's the man that we saw at the end of episode 6. And Coulson says he's trying to find out the meaning as well, because they don't know what these words mean. It just seems to be hieroglyphics, basically. And, Coulson's a very smart person, but it's not like he knows hieroglyphics. It's not like hieroglyphics is, like, his best language or anything. So, obviously, he wants to know what this means. So he sees the train track and realizes that's actually part of the pattern, that it's not two-dimensional. So Thompson gets free, takes his family, and he frees Coulson first. So Coulson's free and everything. And then Mac is driving with Sky towards Coulson, and Sky explains what he was, and Thompson gets their attention on the road. Coulson gets the killer, holds him, forcing him to look at the train tracks, and Mac and Sky get them at gunpoint, but the killer calms down, and they look down at the tracks and realize the writing is actually not a map, but a blueprint for a city, which I thought that was a fantastic twist, because, of course, if it was a map, I'm like, okay, where is this map to? We're not really seeing much of a map here. It's obviously a blueprint for the city, which makes more sense than what they initially thought it was for. That definitely makes sense why they think that. So, I definitely really enjoyed that. So Thompson thanks Coulson for helping him figure things out, and Coulson says the compulsion is gone now that he knows what the writing was, because, he was under compulsion. Now that he knows what it is, they need to find out why the alien was going there. And they have Bakshi in the cell, and Coulson gives Bakshi's phone to Sky to see what she can get from it, because they want to find out what's going on with Bakshi. They want to find out what he knows, and clearly there's something going on with him, so they want to find out, he wants Sky to further research about him. And he gathers his team, and I loved this scene. I thought this was amazing. He explains his past and present state of being, he talks about how he was under compulsion and everything. And he says Hydra is trying to solve the same puzzle with more resources. He shows them the city blueprint, and he says they need to solve it before they do. They need to solve it first. And I think that is awesome. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what's going to happen here, you know, where this city is going to be, because it's obviously a city blueprint, so obviously they're going somewhere, and we'll have to see what ends up happening there. But before we can process that, we do get a really awesome post-credit scene, which was probably one of my favorite post-credit scenes we've seen so far out of all the ones we've seen. My favorite is still at the end of episode 5. The one at the end of episode 5 is just, like, kick-ass awesome, but this one was still amazing, and I loved it. I love the, post-credit scene here. So Grant's putting on some music, and he begins shaving his beard, and he then buzzes his hair, so, because, you know, he's been locked up for a prison for so long, he has a very thick beard and everything. I guess he doesn't support No Shave November. I mean, I guess he doesn't, because it's November, so, maybe not November for them, but November for us, at least. He then buzzes his hair, and, I thought that was interesting. And he and Sky are actually listening to the same song. And Sky gets a call from an unknown number on Bakshi's phone, and it's Grant. And he says there'll be more gifts like Bakshi, and he suggests they get rid of the new recruits, which is huge because that means Lance is gone, Mac is gone, now Thompson is gone. So, you know, because, you know, Thompson's now going to become a part of their team, and, you know, Bobby also. And basically, he looks at a paper and he tells her that he has to go and he's going to see her shortly. And I'm like, how's he going to see her shortly? He's obviously not part of S.H.I.E.L.D. anymore. But he looks at a paper with his brother on the front page as he packs his bag. So yes, he is going after his brother, which is going to be amazing to watch. And I just love the way the episode ended there. I thought that was amazing. But overall, guys, this episode was amazing. Definitely the second best episode of the season, but there are a few things I definitely do want to talk about this episode. First of all, the whole thing with Coulson I thought was amazingly done with the whole alien writing and everything. I definitely really enjoyed that. What is this blueprint going to lead them to? We don't exactly know what it is, but there are 2 episodes left of this half of the season before the show goes on a very long hiatus and doesn't return until March, which is very sad, but unfortunately that's happening, which I'm upset about, but I guess it makes sense because, you know, Agent Carter's going to replace it, so it has 2 more episodes, and next week's looks amazing. I can't wait for it, definitely. We'll have to see what happens there. What's happening with Bakshi? Clearly Bakshi is hiding something. They need to find out what's going on with him. I'm actually wanting to see more of Hydra. We didn't see a lot of Hydra in this episode. We saw that killer for most of the episode. But I want to see how Hydra is doing with this blueprint. I want to see what's going on there. Because we're not really seeing a ton of that. And I definitely do want to see what's going on with Hydra. Because I think that is very important and very imperative that we find out what's going on with them. Because Hydra is just as important as Coulson's team. I mean, Hydra is the main antagonist of the show. So Grant, of course, going after his brother. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens there. I'm thinking what he's going to do is he's going to kidnap his brother, so his brother doesn't tell everyone that he's not, you know, that he got released from prison. I think that's what he's going to do. He's going to try to basically cover up his secret by kidnapping his brother, because it looks like next week he does kidnap his brother, which I think is going to be really awesome to watch. I'm really looking forward to that a lot. Thompson and Coulson, I'm very interested in seeing what's going to happen there. I like seeing Thompson join the team. As far as what Max said to Fitz, I don't know what that is alluding to, but the thing about the backup files, I really think that that's the reason why Fitz was seeing Jemma. There wasn't a lot of that in this episode, but we did see some of it. We did see a lot of back and forth between Lance and Bobby, which I always love. I think it's, I just love that those two don't get along very well at all. I think it's hilarious to watch, definitely. That's one of my favorite parts of this season in general. I definitely have been really enjoying that, that the two of them just, they don't get along at all. I love seeing that. But basically, that's really all there is to say about this episode. I mean, there's really not much else to say, but I do know that it's about to get amazing. Shit's definitely about to go down. Next week looks amazingly epic. I can't wait for it. I can't wait for next week's episode. I think it definitely is going to be amazing. And it's very interesting about how, you know, Grant is fitting into the picture, and I do like seeing that Grant is working with excuse me, was working with Hydra, because I think that is really cool as well. We'll see what happens there. But that's basically my review. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know if you guys saw this episode, and I will see you guys in my next review, which will be my review for tonight's episode of Sons of Anarchy, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.